Herman Kelly was his name.
Good. Dr.
Really?
Tarver,
Yeah.
good morning. We will call our meeting to order. Before we get started, I just would like to remind you to please mute your device. Please mute your device so that distractions are limited. Also, if you have any public comments that are germane to this agenda, the staff is standing by and ready to receive your comments. They may be sent to us at public_comments@sus.edu, public_comments@sus.edu. You may also log onto our website at www.sus.edu. That's www.sus.edu and click on SU Board, then Current Board Packet. And there's a link dedicated to the online submission of your public comments there. We will now have the invocation provided to us by the Reverend Herman Kelly, who is the pastor of the historic Bethel AME Church of Baton Rouge. Pastor Kelly.
Thank you. Let us pray. Lord, we come under the auspices of your Holy Spirit. We realize that we are in difficult days and we are trying days, but we realize that you are still the creator. You are still the sustainer of all life. We come asking you to bless our deliberations this morning. And we realize that nothing can happen unless you guide us by your spirit, by your grace, and by your mercy. So Lord, we call upon you to protect us from hurt, harm, and danger. Be with our families as we deliberate. Be with us as we take care of the business of Southern University. We thank you for all assembled here. Continue to give them knowledge, continue to give them know-how, continue to give them the strength to carry on to a new generation. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, let us all say amen.
Amen. Amen. And Pastor Kelly, we thank you again for sharing with us this morning. We also wish to convey our sincere condolences again to you. I will say publicly what I said to you privately.
Yes,
and we will certainly add your wife to our list of resolutions that the board will consider and adopt later on in this meeting, and we'll send them to you accordingly. God bless you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you for your concern and continue to pray for us. God bless you.
Will do. Thank you. We'll go now to item 3, roll call. Dr. Belton.
Yes. Good morning.
Morning.
Roll call. Attorney Rutledge.
Here.
Attorney Shorty.
Here.
Attorney Armady. Mr. Bartholomew.
Here.
Dr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Fondell.
Here.
Mr. Gilliam.
Here.
Mr. Hilliard.
Here.
Mr. Lawson.
Present.
Ms. Reeves.
Here.
Mrs. Smith.
Present.
Dr. Tarver.
Here.
Mr. Joel. Reverend Torbert.
Present.
Dr. Whitfield. Ms. Williams.
Here.
You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you, members. Our next item is the adoption of the agenda, and I want you to bear with me because we do have a significant change that you need to be made aware of. The backup was sent by Ms. Taylor Jarrell this morning. Dr. Belton learned on last night regarding the absence of the position for the chair of our undergraduate nursing program, which was not on here, that should have been on here. And he is requesting the board's consideration for it to be added to the agenda today, which requires unanimous consent. If this were not something that had a direct alignment to students, I would have required them to wait until the next meeting. But because it does have an immediate impact on that program and students, I informed them that I would offer it up for the board's consideration. And so with the adoption of today's agenda under item P1, we would replace Thomas Bates with Stacy Taylor, Chair of the Undergraduate Nursing Program. Thomas Bates would be replaced with Stacy Taylor, Chair of the Undergraduate Nursing Program on the Baton Rouge campus. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as stated?
So moved.
moved.
It's been moved and seconded. And again, Ms. Taylor Jarrell is keeping the minutes. So if I can't tell who offered, if you'll just say the name who offered and seconded, that will help us keep the minutes accurate. Who offered the motion?
Edwin Shorty.
Shorty offered it, and who seconded it?
Offer.
Shorty and Tara. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Is there any objection? Any objection? The amendment stands, the agenda rather stands adopted. We'll go now to item 5, public comments. Are there any public comments? Staff, do we have any cards or any online submissions yet? We do have one. Okay. We have public comments submitted by Dr. Albert Samuels in the Department of Political Science here on the Baton Rouge campus. The comment is as follows. I noticed in the line item for faculty promotions of the proposed 21-22 budget, there are no dollars earmarked for this purpose. Does this mean that there is no intent to provide salary adjustments for the faculty who received tenure and promotion in the last cycle? The board approved 4 faculty members for tenure and promotion during the March 2021 board meeting. Yet so far, there is no definitive word on fair salary adjustments for them. This is not only unfair, but unconscionable, given that on this same agenda, this board is being asked to give raises to selected administrators and to create new administrative and staff positions. If the university can find money for those raises and new positions, it can certainly find resources to fund the salary adjustments that these faculty members have earned. And so I know, members, we have items R and S on today's agenda that will provide for the adoption of the budgets that Dr. Samuels referenced in his public comments. And so at that time, maybe Dr. Belton and Mr. McClinton can speak to the funding that will support those adjustments for the faculty members. Are there any other public comments? All right. Seeing no other public comments, I'll entertain a motion for item 6A, approval of the minutes of the July 16, 2021 SU Board of Supervisors meeting.
John Bartholomew offers.
Is there a second?
Myron Lawson seconds.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the July 26, 2021 Board of Supervisors meeting minute. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the minutes stand approved. Members, we will take some items up in Globo, and to the extent there are any questions or concerns about any item, we will take them in the order presented. We will take items B, C, and D. There's a SAC standard. B is SAC standards 4.2A, mission review. Campus mission statements are submitted for the board's annual review and approval. Item C, standard 4.2D, conflict of interest. Conflict of interest forms should be completed by each board member. Item D, standard 4.2G, board self-evaluation. Board self-evaluation form should be completed by each board member. I believe we have Dr. Penning for a brief presentation on each of these items. Dr. Penning? Dr. Belton, did you have anything to say before you?
No.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. President. Good morning, colleagues. I'll be very brief. The chairman just enumerated those 3 standards. Action on all 3 standards will ensure that the Southern University campuses remain compliant with SACs. Action, the first one, 4.2A, prayerfully will get discharged today. With respect to 6B, with respect to 6C and 6D, conflict of interest and board self-evaluation, we respectfully ask if those can be completed and return back to the board office by September 1st, Ms. Chairman. That's the only request. Other than that, I'll be happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I yield back to the chair.
Thank you. Any questions, members, regarding items B, C, or D? Any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion for the adoption of items B, C, and D?
Mr. Shorty, I would so move.
And Christie Reeves, second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any objection? Any objection? Hearing none, those items stand approved, and I believe Ms. Taylor Jarrell and Dr. Renee will be getting the appropriate forms for items C and D to you colleagues for execution and return them to Dr. Penning. We'll go now to item E, the annual evaluation of President Chancellor. Colleagues, I want to thank you for working with the office. I know we pestered you a lot about getting them in, and so we sincerely appreciate you getting them in. And at this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Gillum.
Mr. Chairman, I want to add to your commendations and thanks to the board members for responding to the call to send these performance evaluations back in. Want to also add to that, of course, because I know it took a lot of time, a lot of effort. We want to also give special appreciation, Mr. President, rest of the board too, to our staff members. But for the gentle reminding, if you will, from Mrs. Jarrell, this could have been another kind of challenge. Also to Dr. Renee and the staff. And more importantly, of course, we want to thank Dr. Penning for doing the analysis. Beautiful job, well done. I see him sitting there in the audience. We want to give him a special thanks. Indeed, the report was professionally done. It's graphic, it's substantive, and the result of the performance evaluation indicates indeed that the president was rated as exceeding all performance expectations. Also, in closing, Mr. Chair, this is a SACS requirement that has been met. And as I believe Dr. Penning has said too, this puts us in line to keep that gold standard with SACS. Again, thanks to all who responded to this. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gillum, and thank you for your leadership as chair of our personnel committee and working with Dr. Penning and staff to make certain that this was done. I want to congratulate Dr. Belton on an outstanding evaluation. It was an exceeds expectation. And we sincerely appreciatively acknowledge the commitment and hard work that he has consistently demonstrated. And at this time, Dr. Belton, we would recognize you for any comments that you'd like to offer at this time. Wait, before you offer any comments, are there any comments from any board members? Any comments from any board members? All right, Dr. Belton.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'd just like to express my appreciation for your observations. I've had the occasion to review many of them, and I would dare ask your further consideration and welcome a call from me. I'd like to just speak to each of you and express personally my appreciation and also to garner from you your feedback as we continue to advance the mission of Southern University and A&M college system. I feel compelled, however, to also acknowledge our staff and their contributions to our mission. They have done an outstanding job of facilitating our day-to-day operations and indeed, giving evidence of their dedication to our role, scope, and mission. We have benefited from the leadership of our respective campuses, and their presence clearly has been felt. So again, thank you, Mr. Chair, and the members of the board for your candid feedback.
Thank you, Dr. Belton, and I want to echo your comments regarding staff at all levels, board office, president office, campus levels. There's a lot that goes on around here that in preparation for board meetings and other matters that's under the purview of the board and system that everybody does not see, but these people work and they are not guided by an 8 to 5 sort of time line, and they're laughing here because they know, it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, midnight, whatever needs to be done to get the job done. So I want to appreciatively acknowledge their work as well. So thank you. Item E is an informational item, so there's no motion necessary. And I do encourage you members, as always, to reach out to Dr. Belton, and I encourage Dr. Belton to reach out to you to the extent that there are some individual concerns that you may have that you'd like to address to him.
Yes.
Personally. We'll now consider items F through I, motion resolution amending the contract of employment for Dr. Ray Belton. G, motion and resolution to authorize the board chairman to contract with search firm and to provide a budget to the search committee and related matters. H, request approval of the amendment of the facilities lease agreement by and between Southern University and A&M College System and Airmark Educational Services LLC relative to the minimum guarantee due to COVID reduction in meal plans. And I, request approval of the amendment to the facilities lease agreement by and between Southern University and A&M College System and Airmark Educational Services LLC to provide a financial commitment to John B. Cade Library. That's items F, G, H, and I. Any questions, comments about any of those items?
Gillum would move for approval of E through items, E through I.
F
Mr.
through
F through I, I'm sorry. Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
sir. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Gillum and seconded by Dr. Tarver. Is there any objection? Hearing none, those items stand approved. We'll go now to items J through N because we will have a presentation from our athletic director on item O. Item J is request approval of modification of the Miss Kick agreement for expansions coming from our Shreveport campus. Request approval of agreement with Alpha Management Partner LLC and Sussler for housing management. L, request approval for Southern University at Shreveport naming policy. M, request approval of the SUNO distance education attendance policy. And N, request approval of the student athlete name, image, and likeness policy. Now, members, I would like to hear from our athletic director on both items N and O. So we'll go ahead and add O to this, but we will like to hear from the athletic director on the name, image, and likeness policy. That's gotten a lot of attention all over the country. And O, the request authorization to name the field at A.W. Mumford Stadium, the Pete Richardson football field. We are not renaming the stadium, just the just the field. So first of all, are there any questions before the presentations on N and O regarding any item between J and O? Any questions or comments from members?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Would like some kind of comment regarding the approval of the new management partner contract on the Shreveport campus, because they're changing. I believe the new contract is going to be with a company called Rise Residential. And I think it's in page 50 of our board packet. Don't expect anybody to reference that, Mr. Chairman.
No, you're talking about item K?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay. Dr. Ellis, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Can you please speak to item K?
Yes, we currently have a property management agreement for the management of our housing units. We have about 240 beds, and currently that is Rise manages that. At the end of October, we'll be transitioning to a new management company, this Alpha Management Company. And so really they'll be providing the same basic services, but we'll just have a new property management company. Is that sufficient?
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr.
Now,
Gillum, you have the floor.
Just to follow up. First of all, Mr. Chairman, I want to ask the question, are any of the principals or individuals of the new company you're going with, Rise Residential, are any of those principals also in any way, shape, form, or fashion connected to the current Alpha Management Partnership, to your knowledge?
Not to our knowledge, no.
Okay. Now this is going to be with the new Alpha. I believe that company is located in Lafayette. And this is going to be a 5-year agreement, right?
Yes.
All right. And I know we've had some concerns, and I'll bring some more of those up in a minute when we talk about the housing, the other housing part. And I know we had some real concerns with the current one. Have we vetted this company? Can you tell me who have they managed? Have they managed comparable campuses like ours, colleges, universities across the region or the country?
Well, off the top,
What kind of track record do they have? That's what I'm asking.
yes. Now, one of the major property management is actually in Atlanta at Georgia State. I believe Georgia State is the largest university in the state of Georgia. And so they currently, I think, are managing 2 properties there and in the process of building and managing a third there. So that's one of their major partners. I know they've managed some institutions as well in Louisiana. And so based on all of the information we were able to ascertain, definitely a reputable company and a reputable person.
Okay, just want to know. I mean, so we vetted them. We got some positive feedback on them.
Yes, and actually we've been looking at this guy for a while, even though it's just now coming up. We've probably been looking at him for the last 2 years, actually.
Well, I see the name, but I don't want to mention it here in public.
Right.
That's the reason I ask you if the principals, any of the principals in this company, were also associated with the current company. I believe it's Rise.
Yes.
So you say, to your knowledge, you don't think so?
To my knowledge, we don't think so. Rise is more of a large conglomerate. This particular person has a smaller portfolio, and we believe he can provide more personable attention to our needs.
Okay. One last one, of course. Did we do this via an RFP or a competitive situation, or how did we go about recommending this particular management firm?
Well, we did solicit informally a number of, we reached out to a number of property management companies that we knew. He was the only one that actually submitted a bid, a proposal.
Okay, so you did do a solicitation of multiple people there. Sir?
Sorry, I thought I was unmuting. I muted, so I apologize.
Okay, maybe I didn't speak very clearly. I said, so we did indeed solicit from some multiple entities.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that answers, those are the answers to my questions, Mr. Chair.
I have a question, Mr. Chair, Myron Lawson.
Mr. Lawson?
On the solicitation for RFQ or RFP, how did we solicit? Was there any, I guess, broad brush attempt, or was it a rifle attempt to select an individual? I guess I was kind of concerned because I know we have some property management firms in the Shreveport area that with this size portfolio that Lafayette is challenging as it is being locally was probably the most attractive one that we selected. So I'm curious as to how do we solicit the potential vendors?
Yeah, we reached out, and again, as I mentioned, informally to entities that we knew had managed campus housing. We were not aware of anybody in the Shreveport area that has managed campus housing. And so because of relationships that we have, we reached out to only those. So that's why nobody in Shreveport was solicited.
Okay, those with the population of the folk that you looked at, was it greater than 5, less than 15, somewhere that number?
Less than 5, so probably about 3 or 4.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? I have a question for Mrs. Blosh and or Mr. DeQueer. I'm concerned about, first of all, were either of your eyes on this document?
Yes, sir.
My concern is our right to terminate the contract. Perhaps I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that in most of our, particularly state issued contracts, that we maintain an absolute right to terminate said agreements for convenience. Moreover, we also typically embedded in these documents a funding clause, which I do not see. I'm also, if you read the circumstances under which we might terminate it, it is strictly for cause, which is means that this is essentially a guaranteed 5 years. And I guess my question is, did we give any thought to the inclusion of a provision in this contract of a 30-day notice to terminate for convenience? Because sometimes the relationship does not work and it does not meet whether or not we file for a petition for bankruptcy or if the property has been condemned and so forth.
Chairman, those were considerations that we can definitely go back and look at, because this involves student fees and not state fees. Some of the provisions that that you suggested that would typically be in state contracts were not included in this one. But we can go back and
But let me ask you something. As I appreciate it, this contract is with Southern University of Shreveport, which is a state entity.
yes, sir.
And so to the extent that we receipt the money, the rules apply, right?
With regard to the bid processing,
Well,
the-
no. I'm just talking about that I believe that this is state money. To the extent that we receipt it and the contract is with us, we're paying it regardless of the source.
So Chairman, student fees historically have been assumed to be state monies held by the university, but they're actually student fees that belong to them, held for them to be redistributed back to them based accordance to whatever program that they do, such like.
Gotcha. But what was your first statement?
Historically, we have generally treated them as state
All right.
fees, but there are exceptions to utilizing the student fee in this manner. But again, reviewing back or going back to looking at the convenience, the funding sources that you had brought up, we can definitely revisit those with MSK.
Particularly if
Sorry,
we're,
Alpha Management.
yeah, if we're entering into a new relationship where there might be some question. Dr. Ellis, and I certainly don't want to put you in a jam, but if we let our lawyers do some more work on this and bring this back in September, does that put you in a precarious position?
It does.
How?
It just shortens the length of time that we have to transition. The current agreement with Rise Management ends October 31st. And if we had to come back to the next board meeting, it would just shorten that transition time. And I really don't want to have to potentially have any types of inconvenience for our students. That's why we wanted to try and get it approved as soon as possible so that the new management company could work with the old in transitioning from one company to the other to avoid as many potential inconveniences to the student as possible.
Well, colleagues, I'm thinking perhaps offering a motion to allow for the execution of the contract with the approval of Dr. Belton subsequent to council doing some more work on these provisions that gives us a little bit more latitude to get out of it.
I would offer motion, substitute, motion. Well, you're not making a motion. I'd offer a motion with the caveat that we afford, that opportunity to the president.
I would second that.
Okay, so guys, what I would like to do is after the N and O presentation, I would like for the record to reflect that Mr. Lawson and Mr. Shorty move on items J through O with the caveat for item K that this item can only, contract can only be executed with approval of the president after and the recommendation of council based on the inclusion of those provisions that we discussed. And we'll go now to item N. If there are no comments or questions regarding items L or M, we'll go to items N and O, and we'll recognize the athletic director, and he can take them up in that order. Is that okay with you, Mr. Lawson and Mr. Shorty?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We'll go now, if there are no questions about any of the item J, L, or M, we'll go now to item N. Mr. Banks?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and to all honorable board members. Definitely like to take the time and the privilege you offer to talk about, I think, what is known as the NIL of the new landscape of collegiate sports. And NIL is just that, is name, image, and likeness. And you know, there always have been that student athletes are on to get paid, on to get any enhanced benefits. But there has been by statute of our state and several other states who have petitioned the NCAA and passed a bill that give our student athletes an opportunity to get paid for their name, image, and likeness. The concern is that the NCAA have not adopted anything. And so as of right now, we are definitely governed by, each state is governed by their own laws and regulations of this national image and likeness bill. And so the name, image, and likeness bill actually speaks to a student athlete can get paid from a non-competing sponsor of the athletic department of the university to use their social media platform. Now, there is legislation coming down from the federal government that will preempt the state laws. We haven't got to that point at this particular time. And there's still also the legislation of the NCAA that there aren't any agents to be involved with student athletes. And so we have to navigate through this process to protect ourselves on both sides. We are all for student athletes getting the opportunity to get compensation off their name, image, and likeness. I think across the board, all presidents and all athletic directors are in favor of this process. And also, I think in a situation for Southern University, we aren't in a position to give our student athletes the extra compensation like cost of attendance, like most of our universities are doing across the state. We are working toward that, and hopefully in the near future, our budget can allow us to do those things. So this name, image, and likeness will give our student athletes, those that are chosen by different companies, the chance to get compensation. We have a responsibility as the university, the athletic department, to do a few things in this bill without going totally through this bill. And the first thing is to train our student athletes and to educate our student athletes about this bill. We are on the hook to bring in sponsors or to bring in professional people to talk to our student athletes about this bill and let them know what their rights are. And so through our compliance, we're working with each sport and each student athletes and their parents to make sure they get the notifications about this bill, to make sure we're in compliance
letting them know the opportunity that they have. The next thing that we have is monitoring. And so there's an obligation after we speak to each student athlete for them to have the understanding that if they're going to engage with some company such as Coca-Cola for their name, image, and likeness, that they have to come to the university and get that approved through compliance and then the athletic director. And so when I say no competing brand, so if Dr. Pepper offered a student athlete Pepsi the chance to come in and use their name, image, and likeness, we will reject that because Coca-Cola is a corporate sponsor of the university. And we also had the obligation of financial literacy. And so we have to put on 5 workshops a year to educate our student athletes across the table, whether they're getting a name, image, and likeness deal or not, about financial literacy going forward, because they have a chance to engage in making money for themselves. And so this bill is very unique. I think that you will see this bill right now governed by the states, but the federal government should have a bill come to us by this time next year. And there also will be the NCA putting out their legislation toward this name, image, and likeness as well. And so this is fluid, it is ever changing, but at the present time, the bill that was passed, this is what's governing what we're allowed to do. Now, some people say, well, this is for the Power Fives and the big boys, in which probably so, but this also allow our student athletes, if chosen, to get the same amenities that they're getting at their level. And so we're preparing ourselves to govern ourselves accordingly. We will hire a third-party company, and we're looking at a couple of companies such as Compass that deal with compliance at our level to help us govern ourselves to make sure that we're in compliance and doing the right thing for our student athletes. So if we ever become audited as such, we're prepared and we're clean across the table. And so this bill of name, image, and likeness, to basically sum it up, is that a student athlete has the opportunity to get paid from their social media platform.
Thank you, Mr. Athletic Director. Colleagues, any questions, comments? Any questions or comments? Okay, I just have one, Mr. Banks. I didn't see anywhere in this policy, and correct me if I missed it, there does not appear to be an apparent limit. I understand that the language in here just says it has to, whatever they pay has to be consistent with market value, but I didn't see anywhere that there was a limit on the amount that the student could earn. Is that right?
That's correct. There's no limit, and so they can. And let me say this: the university will have its opportunity as well to get compensated after the student athletes. Give you an example. There's no limit, but the student athletes cannot use our marks as it relates to their name, image, and likeness. So let's say they'll probably have on a Columbia blue shirt, but it won't have Southern University logos. If you get to a point where they want to use our marks, then there's another part to that, is that company will have to compensate us to use our logos and our marks if they want to make it more official. And so therefore that's when, as it relates to us monitoring, we're then engaged with that company as it relates to using our marks and get get costs for the university associated to that. And it goes even further if they start talking about selling our T-shirts and caps and branding in that effort as well.
Final question about this from me. I gather that you have identified somebody internally on your staff to work with the third party on monitoring this situation.
Yes, sir. So that is a compliance. Our compliance department will work with the third party company. That is the process of, because compliance is our regulatory company, regulatory department within our department that communicates with the NCA on a daily basis as it relates to being compliant for certification, eligibility. And so this is another tool that they use in their department. So this will come on our compliance department, in which we, for the record, is that we are still identifying, since Dr. Scott has left, and also Corman King, we're in the process of interviewing other strong candidates to make sure that we stay the par for the race.
Okay, thank you.
I had a quick question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Lawson.
I guess what I was kind of confused about, Mr. Director, is the market value. That's a little nebulous to me. I mean, how is that determined, market value?
So if I can set the record straight, and you can get the undertone and message from my statement, is that this is geared for the big boys. And so when you start talking about recruiting, and they going to get that quarterback that's number one, they do not want to set a value to that. And so I just believe, and that's the reason why the NCAA have not stepped in yet, and from my standpoint or from my lenses, that this will be a recruiting war. And so whatever companies affiliated with those universities that can engage that student athletes would, in return, particularly help that student athlete go to that university. And so I just think, as I said earlier, that the Power Fives, this bill, this legislation is more lenient toward the Power Fives, but our student athletes have the same opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Any other questions or concerns or comments regarding item N? If not, we'll go now to item O. Mr. Athletic Director.
Yes, sir. So I'm asking this board to approve the recommendation that I made to the president of naming our field out to Coach Pete Richardson. We know that and the legendary Coach Mumford, our stadium is named after Coach Mumford, and our field house actually is named after Coach Mumford. But we do know that we have another historic and probably our most celebrated coach right now is the legendary Coach Pete Richardson. That we know Coach Pete Richardson was at the university for 17 years. He won 4 Black College championships and 5 SWAC championships. He kind of rebranded Jaguar Nation. In his time at the university, he definitely brought the awakening to our football program and brought a lot of prestige to our university. We know that he went in the Louisiana Hall of Fame in 2012. And he has still an incredible mark right now on our fan base and on the legacy of players that played under him. And so we are never arguing among our greats who are the greats. But we like to recognize our greats because that also give us a chance to enhance ourselves financially and to also help our coaches as it relates to, in our athletic department, as it relates to bringing students and student athletes to our campus as a recruiting tool. And so we formed, most of you all know, we formed this committee about 4.5 years ago. And we actually was going to bring this request to the board before the pandemic came. We started off having the Pete Richardson Classic. We birthed the P. Richardson Classic first and wanted to go several years with the P. Richardson Classic and then bring this request to the board. And so we are not arguing the fact about Marford Stadium. We just want to, for our fan base and the communication that we have with our fan base. And you all know the energy that Coach Rich brings whenever we bring him to the campus, and want to use his mark as a historian for our university and our own to further accelerate ourselves in our department and for this university. And so there will be no change. There will be Marford Stadium. I'm asking for the request of P. Richardson Field. And similar to F.G. Clark Activity Center, the mini dome in Avery Johnson Court. And also to be mindful that our track is also within that structure. And it just happened we have one structure with track and field and football, that our track is named after Roscoe Moore as well. And so we wanted to add the caveat of recognizing P. Richardson for his accomplishment in a very fine way. And we think it will enhance what we're doing in the athletic department in the university by naming the field the P. Richardson Field. So we would say welcome to Marford Stadium and P. Richardson Field with your approval today.
Thank you.
Mr.
Any
Chairman?
questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Just
Mr. Chair, this is Arlanda. I'm sorry, Mr. Gillum, go ahead.
I'll defer, madam.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you. I know that that you and I, Mr. Chair, had spoken about this when I brought to your attention a presentation that he did in the New Orleans area. So I really wholeheartedly support this. And I agree with you, Coach Banks. Just what I saw at the presentation that he did with these young men and then giving them hope. I just think that this would be an outstanding venture that we would do. So I thank you for bringing this forward. And Mr. Chair, if you had anything to do with whispering it in his ear, I appreciate that, because I know that you and I had a conversation about this, and to see it come to fruition is just outstanding.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Gillum.
Yes, and just a point of levity. My illustrious athletic director and I had fun going around about this, because when you get to be my age, and I must have had my reading glasses off that day and some dim light, as I went through the 270-something pages of this packet, the first impression that I got was that, hey, and I called him. I said, Roman, you mean you're changing the name of A.W. Mumford Stadium? And of course, we talked back and forth. And you have to understand, I said, I'm using this as a point of levity. He corrected me, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of my board members said, no, he's still of the fact that, this is the house that A.W. Mumford built. Because I look back, there's not enough of us on this board to remember, actually knowing Coach A.W. Mumford. But when I got there in 1960, he was a legend at the time. He had the legend of being the only person to ever beat the illustrious coach up at GSU. I only lost to him one time. But Mr. Banks and I, we got together. We had fun talking about it. And understand, Roman's dad and I, we roamed the campus together back in the 60s with Robert Love and all that. And we kind of have an affinity and a love for, of course, the memory and legend of Coach Mumford. But we do understand and we totally respect the contribution that Pete Richardson has made. And we're totally supportive of this, Mr. Chair and Mr. A.D.
Thank you, Mr. Gillum. Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So my first opportunity to be a college basketball coach, and most of y'all know this, an athletic director. I was hired at Suzzler on Shreveport campus at 24 years old by Mr. G. I called him affectionately known then Mr. Gillum. And so basically what he done was called me in and chastised me in the office, and then told me to get it right and send me back across the hall like he used to do. So that's what happened in that conversation.
Any other comments? Any other comments? Any questions? Well, thank you, Mr. Athletic Director. I certainly share the comments offered by Mr. Gillum and Mrs. Williams regarding the worthiness of this honor that we will bestow upon Coach Richardson. And I hope that we do it in a very classy way during the Pete Richardson Classic. He represented this institution with a tremendous amount of class and dignity and was wildly successful as a football coach. And I think it's an honor that's certainly well earned. And if there are no other comments or questions from board members regarding items J through O, it has already been moved by Mr. Lawson and seconded by Mr. Shorty. Are there any objections to the adoption of those items? Any objection? Hearing none, those items stand approved. And so we congratulate Coach Richardson and we thank you, Mr. Athletic Director, for the presentations this morning. And I know this is not on the agenda, but I'm sure you will keep, and Dr. Belton will keep us posted. Football season is fast approaching, but COVID is raging, and I don't know what cautionary or procedural changes are going to be made with regard to football season. I've gotten a lot of calls about, are we still having football season? And I said, I certainly hope so. But I'm sure you'll keep the board and community inform Coach Banks about any changes or protocols that we're going to have to follow as the season gets underway. So thank you for that. We'll go
Mr.
now.
Chair,
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Smith.
I would like to make a comment in regards to our athletic facility and program. At this time, I observed the field and some work being done. I wanted to ask a question. Are we getting some new concrete in that area? AD Banks?
Yes, ma'am. And I'm not for certain. There's a lot of work to be desired right now. We have a meeting about data completion here in about an hour. And a lot of that work also is from the university side as it relates to improving drainage and those things that we need across the campus. And so Mr. Pitts oversee those projects for us. And so we have a lot of things going on. And so I don't know if Dr. Belton, if you wanted to come in on that,
No,
if Mr. Pitts coming up.
No, that Mrs. Smith, that's going to be, Dr. Belton just informed me that will be a part of Mr. Pitts's presentation, which we'll have a little bit later on the agenda.
Oh, okay. One other comment I would like to say, and that is, I noticed the Tony Clayton Plaza, and it seems as if you've done some progressive work there. Will you give us a little update on that? It looked very, very nice. The lighting was very good. I attended one of the Southern Lab scrimmages, and it was wonderful, a wonderful atmosphere.
Yes, ma'am. So what you observed yesterday were we were over preparing ourselves for the season, and we were working on the lighting tone that we like to show as the sun go down. And you had a chance to see those 16, say the first 16 athletes that we put up, that we celebrate highly across this country. And like our Hall of Famers and Coach Mofford and Mr. Davenport, track stars, and all those. There's 16 names that we have beautified that area with. That's a project between Mr. Clayton, Attorney Tony Clayton, the foundation, and ourselves. And we're looking forward to putting the next 16 names very soon in the near future on those panels as well. And remember, when we brought that to the board, as people buy bricks, pavers, and panels for different prices, that money in return goes back to the athletic department and to the band. And so as we continue to promote and sell on our websites, the foundation and athletic department websites, all the records and all the money goes to the foundation. In return, they monitor the construction of the plats. And also we have a very special part coming. We're trying to get it in before the season. I want to kind of keep it as a surprise for everybody, but it's been paid for and it should be on its way. That's going to bring more value to that area as well. And that area is an area where we find ourselves doing football games where people come and hang out, take pictures of alike, and that's what that's for. So I don't want to be lengthy, but we do have a lot more to come, and you can follow it on True Blue website and on Go Jazz Sports website.
Thank you for the update. I also see we have an Irvin Matthew Plaza that's being done, and that looked nice also. I didn't know about it. I had not noticed it until I saw it this time. So thanks for all of the work that you're doing over there.
Yes, ma'am. And I'd like to say that Mr. Al Harrell in the area of the foundation and athletics partner up on a lot of events. So I do want to make sure that I give them a shout out because I appreciate all the help that they give to the athletic department. And we work intertwinedly together on a lot of projects. So I want you all to know that they're a big reason for this as well.
Board members, it would be encouraging for those of you who have not seen any of the improvements that if you have the opportunity to drive by and see it, I think it will motivate your interest as far as the athletic department is concerned. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. We'll go now to item P, request approval of personnel action on positions equal to or greater than 60,000. Items 1 through 10, with the understanding that item 1 is the chair of the undergraduate nursing program in the person of Stacy Taylor and not Thomas Bates. Is there a motion? Is there a motion for item?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved by Mr. Shorty and seconded by Mr. Bartholomew. Any objection? Hearing none, the item stand approved. We go now to item Q, request approval for an unpaid sabbatical for Professor Julie Stillman. Mr. Shorty moves. Is there a second?
Second. Second, Ann Smith.
Mrs. Smith seconds. Any objection? Hearing none, the item stands approved. We'll take up item R and S together. Fiscal year 21-22 operating budgets. And item S is ratification of fiscal year 21-22 carried forward appropriation budgets. We'll recognize now Mr. McClinton, Dr. Ruff?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll recognize Mr. McClinton for items R and S. Mr. McClinton.
Yes, sir. Good morning. For ARA, we have the operating budget, general fund, the auxiliary fund, the athletic funds, and all the operating units on the campus. And based on these particular budgets, we have gone through them. Each campus prepared them. One of the things I would like to say is that for the operating budget, and which is the general fund budget, the total budget for the Southern University system for 2021 was $155,459,017. And the budget for 21-22 for the entire system is $136,395. We had an increase in the general fund budget system-wide of $8,677,378. And those increases were basically the state general fund was $3,956,513. The interagency transfers were $841,307. Self-generated fees was $3,857,077, and the statutory dedication was $22,481. This document was submitted as a part of the packet, and for the general operating budget, we are requesting your approval. And for item S, this is ratification of the carry forward appropriation for the 21-22 fiscal year. And this is basically the request that funds that we received at the end of the fiscal year, basically for the Shreveport campus was for a health clinic, about $300,000. For the Baton Rouge campus, we received for infrastructure and equipment, that one was 1,475,000. And the one for the Ag Center had matching funds, which was state funds was $2,500,000, and the federal funds was $2,500,000. And we are requesting your approval also for ratification of the carry forward appropriations.
All right, thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
You are-
Dr. Davis?
I make a motion to approve those items as
All right.
stated, Fred.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I want to recognize the chair of our finance committee, Dr. Tarver. Do you have any comments or observations before we
Well,
recognize Dr. Belton?
I did have some concern raised by Dr. Samuels with respect to.
Oh, yeah, sorry, go
I
ahead.
thought it was going to come up during this discussion. Could we get some response back on that?
I think Dr. Belton is prepared to speak to that now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, and certainly appreciate the concern that was expressed by Dr. Samuels. But I would submit to you and to him that the university fully intends to fulfill our obligation to those faculty members who have earned promotion and tenure. That has been our position over the last I could certainly say over the last 6 years, and clearly that would be our intent during this fiscal year.
All right. Does that address your concern, Dr. Tarver?
Yes, it does.
All right. Any other questions or comments from board
Mr. Chair.
members?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir. Mr. Gillum.
just one item, looking at R12, the Cecil back to the athletic budget. And of course, I'm fully in agreement with the motion made by Dr. Davis. But one concern, I've raised this with the chancellor here, that's regarding the football program. My first observation was that I looked in depth at all of these budgets, and there were no entities pertaining to the football program on the Shreveport campus, and it probably should not have been, because it is what's called, I guess, a supplemental organization. It's a nonprofit, but it still has Southern University's name attached to it, and that causes me some concern and some questions I raise. And to the chancellor's credit, he has answered the vast majority of the questions I had regarding Mr. Chair. But here's some of the concerns that I have to bring to you. I got a call about a month ago from a parent in Houston, Texas, whose son somehow was participating in the football program here in Shreveport. And her concern revolved around the fact that the space that was promised or committed to them in our housing unit had not been honored. In fact, they were actually housing the students who had arrived on the campus across town at a hotel, a motel over in Bossier City. And of course, we talked to the administration about that. But the challenge there was, of course, a couple of things actually. Concern was, of course, transportation, moving them back and forth, meals, et cetera, et cetera. Here, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of my board members, I'm putting my student advocacy hat on. I'm fully supportive of this program, plan to be at as many of the games as I can, but I'm concerned about the actual student welfare, because these are student athletes. I stress, student athletes. I want to make sure that they're getting the same provisions, the same services as any other student would get. I had asked for a look at their budget from this nonprofit. I think it's simply called Susler Shreveport Jaguar, I believe it is. I don't think it's stretching it. And Mr. Chair and Mr. Chair of the Finance Committee, to look at what their projected revenues are going to be and what their projected expenditures are going to be. I think that's just minimal. We haven't gotten that information yet. It appears as though they indicated in their agreement with us that they were going to have a minimum of 80 student athletes to be enrolled at the institution. They have roughly about 58 at this point. They indicated that they were going to give us a projected gross revenue of $2.2 million. And I'll close with this, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the board. My point is this: with the limited revenues that we have on the Shreveport campus, I would not want to see one penny of state funds or student-generated funds without the benefit of a student referendum being utilized for this program. That's the extent of my comment, Mr. Chair, and concern.
Thank you, Mr. Gillum. Any other comments or observations, questions from board members? Well,
what is the name? Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I had a question after you finish.
Ms. Lawson?
Well, what is the name of the team? I'm sorry, official name.
I'm gonna have to let the chancellor answer that one, Mr. Lawson.
They call themselves, they're a nonprofit 501c3, and they're the Southern Shreveport Jags, and they've registered that name with the Secretary of State.
So, as Mr. Gilliam alluded to, there is no dealings with the Baton Rouge campus or any NCAA requirements that they would be under, or would hold a Baton Rouge or even New Orleans campus, I guess, accountable for any NCAA challenges based on what you see, Mr. Chancellor?
No, not at all.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Who's talking?
It's Raymond Fondale.
Mr. Fondale.
Yes, I heard your concerns, Mr. Gilman, but I also heard you state that there were 58 students that were there. Had the program not been available there, those 58 students may have gone to play somewhere else at other institutions. What this program does in this area is allow students whose grades may not be up to par to go to probably a Southern or some of the other institutions within the state of Louisiana, gives them an opportunity to play within the state. Those 58 students, and Chancellor Ellis, I would ask, you can maybe elaborate how much additional revenue just having those students in your program is brought to the university.
That would be a question I'd raise to you, Mr. Fondale. Thank you.
Thank you. That was my question to Dr. Ellis, the impact of this program at your institution up in Shreveport.
Okay, so just some clarity, 58 students were those that were here this summer. We project about 80 for the fall because some of the players did not come in for early admission during the summer. So we're projecting about 80 students and are working with those approximately 80 students to get them admitted, paperwork and things like that. And so the $2.2 million number is projected on the 80 students for this fiscal year as gross revenue for the school. And that comprises tuition, fees, housing, meals, and other ancillary contributions that the players may make, bookstore and things like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so in essence, has this made a positive impact on the Susler campus?
We definitely think it has. One of the key things, benefits, has been in housing. We have traditionally been between about 65 and 70% occupancy in our housing, and we may get to 100%, but conservatively, we're looking at about 85 to 90% this fall. So that's just one of the benefits. In addition to, it's another outlet for our students and our supplemental students, or like Upward Bound and dual enrollment, to actually participate in campus activities and feel connected without us having the burden of the financial obligation.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ellis, for that.
Another comment, if I may, Leroy Davis.
Dr. Davis?
Yes, Mr. President, Chancellor, first of all, I want to congratulate you on your evaluation by the board. We appreciate all you do, but I hope that we will reach out to our legislative team, our staff people, the people in the community, the legislators who really went above and beyond to get this additional $8 million for our institution. So I just think they ought to be congratulated, and maybe some type of communication coming from you to each one of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Any other comments or questions regarding RS?
Mr. Chair.
Wait, Mr. Gillum. We recognize Mr. Lawson and then you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I forgot to ask our president, when do we expect a response on this promotion tenure piece? Because sometimes we forget about the promotion part of it, and I'm glad you have not in the past, but how soon can these individuals expect some consideration?
Typically, I think typically we try to advance those in the month of August. I would anticipate we would do so this month.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gillum.
Okay, not meaning to digress back, but I think we jumped around a little bit, Mr. Chair. But back to the football situation, and I'm looking at the records here. Of those 58 students that are proposed to be in this program, it looks like only 24 of them have actually completed their housing anyway. And only 7, Ms. Fondale, have actually completed their FAFSAs. That's a financial aid, financial statements. My point is this: I want to make sure that this program is mutually advantageous for the benefit of our students and for the benefit of the campus itself. It's a good program. It has marvelous potential for students who did not go straight into Division I schools. They can come here if they did not have the proper SAT score, ACT, or whatever's required, or have the the GPA to go in. I just want to make sure that the experience is a wholesome experience for students, because they are students first. Any comment, Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Gillum. Dr. Belton, I would just like to ask you to work with Dr. Ellis regarding this program to make certain that whatever expenditures are made, whatever obligations that we have undertaken are in conformance with the directives that you originally provided him at the beginning of this. I have some serious concerns about what I'm being told is going on. I don't want to rehash them here in this meeting, but I would ask that you work with to make certain that this is being done like it's supposed to be done.
Yes, sir.
All right, it's been moved by Dr. Davis and seconded by Dr. Tarver that we approve items R and S. Is there any objection? Hearing none, those items stand approved. We'll go now to items T through W. Request approval of a memorandum of understanding between Southern University Law Center and Professional Football Players Mothers Association. Request approval for Southern University System to opt in to state banking services contract. Item V, request approval of memorandum of understanding between Southern University Law Center and Louisiana Appleseed. And W, request approval of a memorandum of understanding between Southern University Law Center and Justice and Accountability Center of Louisiana. Any questions, comments regarding items T through V, board members? T through W.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Smith.
Can I get a brief explanation of you, please?
Yes, ma'am, of course, Mr. McClinton.
Yes. Currently, we are banking with JP Morgan Chase, and we were informed by Chase that they were no longer waiving service fees. So after we looked into this, we spoke with the state in terms of opting in to a contract that they have with JP Morgan Chase. And based on that agreement that the state has, we will be able to opt in if this is approved. The advantage is for the university is that we will be able to receive the same interest rates that the state is allowed to receive. For example, now our rate is 0.03 basis points, on interest, with the opting into the state is 0.20, I mean, it's 20 basis point. And also the service fees are less. What we are asking to do is to, if we opt into this particular program, it will give us an opportunity to complete an RFP if we if we decide to do that. But also we realize that when the state sent out their RFP, it's based on a larger sum of money. So they can actually probably get a better rate than we've been able to get. So all we are asking here is to opt in to this contract. We are not committed to stay with it. But right now, the fact that they are discontinuing the waiver of the fees, we will end up receiving more interest. The fees would be less. And also we will be able to use a letter of credit instead of right now, every time our balance change, we have to go in and get permission to increase it or decrease it. So it's to the university advantage right now for us to opt in, and we can make a decision going forward what the university plan to do. In addition to that, the state contract was for 5 years. They started in 2017, and right now they are in the 4th year. And we spoke with them, and they do plan to go forward with the last option year, which would be ending in 2022.
Did that answer your question, Mrs. Smith?
Yes, thanks for that explanation.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Any other questions regarding item T, U, V, or W? Mrs. Smith, do you move approval?
I do. I move for approval.
Thank
Reeves
you.
will second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve items T, U, V, and W. Is there any objection? Hearing none, those items stand approved. We'll go now to items X through Z. Item X, request approval for memorandum of understanding between Southern University Law Center and the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Item Y, request approval for memorandum of understanding between Southern University Law Center and diverse representation. Z, request approval of a memorandum of understanding between Southern University of New Orleans and the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Z, Y, X, Y, and Z. Any questions regarding either of them? Questions, comments? Hearing none, is there a motion for the approval?
Offer, John Bartholomew.
Reeves second.
Bartholomew and seconded by Ms. Reeves. Is there any objection? Hearing none, those items stand approved. We'll go now to item 7, our resolutions. And we recognize Dr. Williams. And Dr. Williams, please remember, we're going to put Mrs. Herman Kelly. I'm working on getting her name to that list. Thank you. Dr. Williams.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Our August 2021 resolutions are as follows. Our sincerest condolences to the George Wiley Whitfield family. Dr. George Wiley Whitfield was a native of Little Rock, Arkansas, and a resident of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was a graduate of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, where he became a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. Dr. Whitfield accepted a position at Southern University, Baton Rouge in 1964 and was promoted over the span of 40 years, and he served successfully as the Director of Continuing Education, Dean of the College of Arts and Arts and Humanities, Coordinator of Performing Arts, and Assistant to the Vice Chancellor of Academics. During his tenure, he directed and performed in over 35 plays. He was the father of board member Dr. Ronnie Whitfield. He passed away on July 27, 2021. Our condolences also to the Cynthia Renee Hightower Jenkins family. Ms. Cynthia Hightower Jenkins was the loving wife of Louisiana State Representative Sam Jenkins. She was a graduate of Booker T. Washington High School and Southern University. For almost 4 decades, she was active in the Shreveport community, worked tirelessly on civic and humanitarian projects, as well as publicizing them. She passed away on July 29, 2021. Condolences also to the Verna Tadney White family. Ms. Verna White was a native of Leesville, Louisiana. and a resident of Washington, D.C. She was a graduate of Southern University and George Washington University. She was a 50-plus year educator and public school administrator. She passed away on August 7th, 2021. Condolences are also extended to the Purvis Cordell Carter Jr. family. Dr. Carter was a native of Dale High and a resident of Grambling. He attended Southern University in Baton Rouge and was initiated into Phi Beta Sigma Omega Psi Phi fraternity in 1955 and was an outstanding leader. He was elected president of his junior class. He was a retired veterinarian. He passed away on August 8, 2021. Condolences also to the Nabi Conte family. Dr. Conte was an associate professor of computer information systems at Southern University at New Orleans, where he taught in the CIS department since 2015. He was the faculty advisor for the CIS Club, who recently earned IBM badges in data science and cybersecurity. He passed away on June 28, 2021, while visiting his home in Sierra Leone, Africa. Condolences also to the Muriel Haysbert family. Miss Muriel Haysbert was born April 9, 1955. She was a 1973 graduate of Southern University Lab School. She received her bachelor and master's degree from Southern University in 1977 and 1980 consecutively. Muriel was an outstanding educator and principal. She's a former Southern University dancing doll and was a loyal and dedicated member of the Southern University Alumni Federation Home Chapter and Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. She dedicated her life to service in the Baton Rouge metropolitan area, and she passed away on August 19, 2021. Condolences also to the Linda Simon Kelly family, who was also added and recently passed. That concludes our August 2021 resolutions.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Mr. Chancellor Pierre.
Mr. Anthony Drake, who's an employee at the Southern University Law Center Facilities Coordinator, passed on Monday, August 16th.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other additions, members? Any other additions? All right, hearing none, Mr. Bartholomew, you move adoption of the resolutions?
I do.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Shorty. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the stated resolutions. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the resolution stand adopted. We go now to our informational items. We'll go to item A. This item is at the request of one of our board members. I share in the request also. We just want a sort of a brief update from our campuses regarding our registration process. We're going to begin with the Shreveport campus. Dr. Ellis.
Okay, bear with me 1 second. I just need to share my screen.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. Well, good morning once again. Just some quick updates on where we are with the admissions and registration process at Susler. As all of you know, our tagline is "Come Be Southern." We actually began the first day of regular registration on the 25th, this coming Wednesday. We have been in the pre-registration phase for the last few weeks. Now, you all can see this. Please tell me yes.
Yes.
Okay. Move-in day for housing is scheduled for August 29th, and that's move-in day to Jaguar Courtyard, our housing facilities in the back of the campus. Classes actually began on August 30th. Now, where are we in the process right now? Right now, we have admitted for fall 2021 about 1,864 students. These are new transfer and readmit students. That's compared to about 1419 at this time last year. We've actually enrolled this fall 2021 1713, and the enrolled is all categories, not just new transfer admits, but continuing as well. That's compared to 1408 last year. And we have about 620 of those paid to date, as compared to 136 paid at this time last year. Now, I want to just point out a couple of key groups within those that have been admitted. Our continuing students compared to last year is 841 compared to 1067. But most of our continuing students typically come to the registration that's scheduled for next week. Our new first-time freshmen, about 430 compared to 399 last year. Again, some of those new first-time freshmen will also come next week. Readmit students, about 148 to 194. Transfer 255 to 269. Dual enrollment 25 to 531. Actually, classes begin here in Caddo on this coming Monday. That process of getting those students processed and enrolled typically takes about 2 to 4 weeks. So that number will significantly increase. Also with SUBR Connect, last year we had about 368. We have about 339. We had 339 last year. Sumo Connect, we have about 40 this year. We had about 93 last year. And I talked with the Connect person on Sumo's campus on yesterday, and she indicated that they're still putting some students in. That number will likely go up. It may not get to the 93, but it will likely go up. And then our international students, last year confirmed number was 31. We have about 12 I-20s, which are new students. The continuing students are not accounted in this, but we anticipate a slight uptick in international students. Our major challenge as far as enrollment continue. Go ahead.
Paying attention to that. You know,
Sorry about that, Dr. Ellis. Please continue. Colleagues, please mute your devices. Thank you.
The major challenge for us continues to be the Delta variant. Again, as I mentioned, our regular registration is next week. If things go as normal, we'll have a pretty decent showing, but because of the uptick, especially here in Northwest Louisiana, that is a variable that we can't account for. And the same thing with, and it could affect even dual enrollment, just because there may be some potential variables that are unaccounted for. However, we believe that at this point, with our numbers, we anticipate a slight uptick in enrollment. Finally, as far as housing, as I mentioned, we have seen a significant, about a 20% increase. Primarily, I would contribute that to the football team. About 240 applications, and that's with the application fee and down payments. So typically when students pay the application fee and the deposit, they show up, and that's compared to about 150 residents last year. And as I mentioned, there is a concern about the Delta variant, but we have days scheduled this coming week to test and to vaccinate students and employees. And we'll also be launching this video that I'd like to play. To try to encourage some students to come back and realize that we're, give me a second. Okay. Let me know if you can hear it. We're launching. So that concludes my report. Again, we're doing everything in our power to try to create a safe environment for our students and employees and hope that they return to campus feeling safe. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. Hearing no questions. Also, Ms. Taylor-Jarrell, let the record reflect that Kevin Taylor-Jarrell and Dr. Whitfield. Okay, all right, thank you. We'll go now to, if there are no questions for Sussler, we'll go now to Dr. Belton and SUBR, who will be followed by SUNO and the Law Center last. Dr. Belton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I would offer that, excuse me. I would offer that our registration process has begun in an exceptional way, starting with move-in date and orientation in this year, welcome week activities. Move-in, I thought I was very pleased with our move-in strategy this year. It took into account requiring of students to give evidence that they had been vaccinated and or had a negative diagnosis as it relates to COVID-19. We experienced some backup in parents and students coming on campus, but that was by design because I think we were very strategic about trying to give families timelines to which they would be commuting to the residential halls such that we could support distancing students as they moved in. And so over 2 to 3 days, I think that process unfolded as we had anticipated. Right now, we are very pleased to date in terms of the trend data that we are observing right now. I had mentioned student orientation, and I would share with you that that we are right now enjoying a participation rate that is 40% higher than where we were last year. In raw numbers, we hosted 1,160 students last year during student orientation. And this year, we hosted 1,673 students during student orientation. Even with regard to the registration of students, last year at this time, we had registered 6,818 students. And at present, and this is as of yesterday, we have registered 7,476 students, which represent a 10% increase in students. And that does not take into account students who have cross-enrolled or the additional students that we anticipate registering through dual enrollment. As you may also imagine, with these significant growth rates or indicators, we have also been challenged, particularly in 2 areas. The first being housing. And so we are now trying to navigate and negotiate a waiting list for families who are trying to be accommodated on the Baton Rouge landmass proper. And while doing so, trying to find auxiliary housing off campus for families and students. We have made available transportation arms where we could provide transportation for students who are staying off campus and ensuring that we have a schedule where we can pick them up and drop them off on a consistent basis. And lastly, the other challenge has to do just with the classes that are being made available to students, particularly the gateway classes. And as I mentioned, the number of first-time freshmen to which we are hosting right now, which is significant. We are challenging the faculty to develop even more sections as we also have restricted the number of students in classes in keeping with our social distancing protocols that we have. So we are working through both of those as we speak. But as of today, we are very optimistic about having a registration process and ultimately being in so positioned as to enjoy a significant increase in our enrollment for the fall 2021 semester.
Thank you, Dr. Belton. Colleagues, any questions, concerns, observation?
I have a question.
Mrs. Smith.
Dr. Belton, thanks for all that you're doing, you and your staff, with our new students. I would like to ask, have you had to turn away any students because of housing, because they live too far away and were not able to register because they didn't have transportation to the campus?
Well, that's what we have been trying to avoid doing, Mrs. Smith. I'm not sure if some students have decided to go elsewhere directly because of the inability to get housing on campus. We have contracted with some housing complexes off campus and have also began to refer students to other housing complexes to whom we have established relationships with. But housing is a dilemma for us at this particular point. And one of the reasons that in many ways, that's why we're advancing projects to develop new housing on campus in keeping with the growth spurs that we are experiencing. And so I cannot answer your question emphatically, but I can say to you, our aim has been such not to be able to turn any student away because of lack of accommodations to them.
Any more questions, Ms. Smith?
That's all for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, colleagues, board members? Any questions for Dr. Belton regarding SUBR? Hearing none, we will move now to SUNO. Dr. Ammons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To members of the board, President Belton and colleagues, we're happy this morning to present on the advising and registration as well as housing at SUNO. And I have asked our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Dr. Adrielle Hilton, to give you a high-level presentation on the SUNO campus. Dr. Hilton.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Emmons. Good morning. I'm just going to share my screen. So move-in occurred for first-year students the weekend of the 5th, and we had an actively engaged welcome week the following week. Move-in occurred this past weekend, the weekend of the 13th, for returning students. A set number of residents were allowed to move in per window period. Only 2 to 3 residents were allowed in the non-residents, excuse me, were allowed in the building to help the students move in. Residents and non-resident helpers were required to answer a COVID questionnaire and had their temperatures taken before entering the residential halls. Residents and visitors were required to sanitize their hands before entering the building. Everyone was mandated to wear a mask during move-in. All residents, non-residents were mandated to practice social distancing. Signage was placed in every apartment as well as breezeway explaining how students should self-report COVID-19 symptoms, issues, and social distancing protocols. Frequent reminders of proper hand hygiene were developed with hand sanitizer widely available in common areas. In reference to registration challenge, due to the pandemic going remote March 2020 to summer 2021, we were limited in opportunities to register students face-to-face. However, pre-registration will take place this fall for spring 2022. A host of initiatives have been underway to increase enrollment and to accommodate all prospective and enrolled students. The university is working with the Trellis Company on a host of campaigns to re-enroll students. The institution has completed marketing campaigns for SUNO Online using YouTube, search engine marketing, and custom audience targeting. Per the Chancellor's request, registration was held both online, virtual, as well as face-to-face to accommodate all students. Also, extended hours were made available following 5 p.m. A chat feature is on the website and has been actively engaged and used by our team to chat with prospective students. Each academic college and school, through the leadership of the academic deans, assisted in phoning prospective students as well as returners. The university utilized, of course, social media to connect with students and prospective students. Finally, the institution worked with WVUE Fox 8 to market the institution to the New Orleans community with roughly, at this present moment, 99,360 video impressions thus far. In reference to enrollment as of close of business yesterday, roughly 1,737 students were registered for fall 2021. This is an increase of 321 students compared to August 19, 2020. Students are continuing to register on a daily basis. We are working rigorously to register as well as assist students in coming to SUNO. Also, dual enrollment students continue to register as well. So those numbers will be coming in. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I want to thank Dr. Hilton for that presentation. And I would like to just highlight just a couple of things. One, for SUNO, as far as enrollment is concerned, one of our biggest challenges is retention. Having that first time in college class from the previous year come back in the fall. So we have made some organizational changes where we have aligned our retention efforts with the academic units, deans, department chairs, as well as our retention specialists are now in the same unit. And we are hoping that we're going to be able to improve in that area. We're also strengthening our academic advisement across our academic units. And again, we're hoping that these things will bear fruit as we take a look at the progress of our students this year, this semester, especially in the gateway courses that President Belton mentioned on the SUBR campus. And there are some really bright spots in the enrollment picture. We are seeing increases in new graduate students on the campus this semester. Also transfer students, those numbers are up compared to where they were last year. And then we're seeing students coming back, being readmitted to the institution. And I would like to think that some of the funding that was provided through stimulus, that we are able to assist students with past balances, that this may be a sign that those funds are really going to good use in bringing students back who left the institution without completing their degrees.
Thank you, Dr. Ammons. Colleagues, any questions or comments for Dr. Ammons? Any questions or comments? All right, here none, we'll go now to Chancellor Pierre and Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to the members of this honorable board. With respect to the Southern University Law Center, actually, we're in week 2 of classes. And let me scroll down here for just a second, and I'll give you. We have, as of this morning, a total enrollment of 920 students, which is a record. 653 have paid their tuition and fees so far. So we're gonna make a push to get the other 267 to be paid by the end of next week. And I was informed that about 40% of the total enrollment represents students from out-of-state jurisdictions based upon residency, as indicated in Banner. And 274 of the 350 first-year law students have already paid their fees. And so we're continuing to work with them. Tomorrow, we will hand out first-year students through a drive-by their iPads and backpacks. So they get that tomorrow for those who have paid. And we're issuing refunds to those students that have paid their fees thus far. We have had a few students, about 4 or 5, who have indicated that they will drop out or defer their enrollment till next year because of COVID. That concludes my report. If
Thank you,
there's any
Chancellor.
questions.
Any questions or comments for Chancellor Pierre? Hearing none, thank you to each of you for your presentations. It looks like we all have good news, and I would like to request, Mr. President, that for our September board meeting, that we also put this update on it, but not so much for the registration process, but just for the numbers in terms of where we are, who's paid, you know, whether or not we're realizing our projections in that regard. So, yes, sir.
That's it.
Okay, all good problems to have. Thank you very much. We will go now to item 8B, our facilities planning project updates. Dr. Whitfield, are you on? Dr. Whitfield?
Yes, I am. I thought you were
Okay.
going to introduce Des Moines, but if you like, we
Did you
can.
have anything to offer before we recognize Mr. Pitts?
No, Maurice has all information, so we'll let him
Thank you.
take care of
Mr.
it.
Pitts?
Yes, sir. First, I'd like to say good morning, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, and honorable board members. I want to follow up on a commitment that Dr. Whitfield and I made to the board, where we said we're going to move these projects along as quickly as possible. Just yesterday, I received a report on priority 1, priority 2, and priority 5 funding. The priority 1 funding turned into cash yesterday. Priority 2 funding will turn into cash in November. And obviously priority 5 will turn into cash next year as the trailing construction funds come in. But I want to start with Southern University New Orleans. Priority 1 money turned into cash for the ADA compliant restroom project. That's $250,000 with another $250 in priority 2 and another 1.1 trailing in priority 5. Southern University of Shreveport, the Collier Science Building turned into cash yesterday at 225, with trailing money of 3.7 million coming next year. Also, Southern University of Shreveport has a workforce development project that turned into cash yesterday at $676,000. The Department of Agriculture, the disaster relief mega shelter, 1 million turned into cash on yesterday, with 10 million in priority 5 trailing next year. The Law Center, priority 2 money, which will turn into cash in November, they have $650,000 with another 10.7 million coming in priority 5. On the Baton Rouge campus, and this is very timely because I'm having some struggles in Stewart Hall, but 1.8 million turned into cash on yesterday. 1.5 turned into cash for the new science STEM building. Also, I want to just take a moment to point out how significant this STEM building is, going to be set right by TTL Lane in our academic corridor. Some of the designs that the architects put up during the architectural selection are amazing, and it's going to really put Southern on the map in terms of engineering and innovation. Also, I would like to announce that this project was awarded to a Southern graduate, Ray Manning. He partnered with a majority company called Coleman Partners, but Ray Manning received this project, and I think we sent a clear message during the time they asked me to give comments that, and when you come and do large projects on Southern University campuses, any Southern University campus, it would behoove you to partner with someone who looks like the population that it serves. The A.O. Williams renovation project, 5.6 million turned into cash yesterday. And Fisher Hall, this is the final construction documents turned into cash on yesterday at 3.5 million. So projects are running. We are working very, very hard. I have a few projects that Dr. Belton specifically has funded and has me working on in the Baton Rouge area, Baton Rouge campus. Also the mini dome drainage project, we spoke about that before. It's so important to get the drainage project right. And so you'll see a lot of equipment in and around the mini dome, because in certain areas of the ring road, we're having to do some reverse crowning and drop in some catch basins to carry the water away from the mini dome. Also, we're doing the parking lot at Southern Lab. The RV parking lot is being dug up, rewired, and also we'll put the asphalt overlay on top of that. If you're on the campus and go where that parking lot is located, you'll see that we have some temporary buildings that we brought in just to manage a lot of our biology lab classes. Right now, just like everything else, we are waiting on the furniture to arrive because there was a backlog in shipping. New Orleans, we're using some of our deferred major projects money to resolve a subsurface piping issue that they've had for years, and we're going to go ahead and get that off of the books and also address some security concerns on the New Orleans campus. That's about it. I think the major news is the STEM science building and also the money that has turned into cash. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Pitts, members? All righty, moving right along.
Thank you, Maurice.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Thank you. We'll go now to item C, our president's report. Dr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I want to start by responding to the comments of Dr. Davis earlier. He was speaking specifically about his wish that we communicate with those delegates who advocated on behalf of the university during the legislative session. And I want to just share with him that we have indeed done so. We personalize letters to each member of the House and Senate shortly after the session concluded, expressing our appreciation for their support. I would offer that that we certainly benefited from two legislators who are very close to us. One being House Representative Randall Gaines, where it was earlier announced that he dedicated $475,000 to the Baton Rouge campus. As you know, Representative Gaines, this is not even his district, but he felt so compelled to do so. And one of our own, Dr. Barbara Carpenter, not only was she a solid advocate throughout the session, but she contributed upward to $1 million to the Baton Rouge campus in light of a request to facilitate a major project on the campus. So I just want to publicly acknowledge their contribution, as well as the entirety of the legislature, particularly the Louisiana Black Caucus, who have always given indication of their support. On yesterday, I shared with the chairman what I believe to be some outstanding news. As you know, we have on the books, and as Mr. Pitts made mention, efforts to establish new freshman housing as supported by the Southern University Foundation, in which we hope to realize shortly in terms of not only closing, but beginning construction for as many as 500 new beds on the Baton Rouge campus. But as we also shared with this board over the last 2 to 3 months, one of our major aims was to secure resources from the HBCU financing program to fund upward to 250 to 300 beds for honor students, and to construct a new student complex on the Baton Rouge campus. And I was, as I speak, I think of our student board representative and SGA president, Mr. Kevin Taylor Jarrell, who has really invested in bringing this about. But what I want to notify you of today is that through the diligence of our staff, and I could tell you they worked very hard, as led by Mr. Ben Pugh and as supported by Mr. Flanders McClinton. They worked very hard in working with the HBCU financing initiative, and has gotten pre-approved for a loan that rises upward to $80 million. And on yesterday, we also received full approval from the Louisiana State Bond Commission to proceed with this loan amount. Our next step actually would be to begin negotiation of the terms of that loan, with the anticipation, Mr. Chair and members, of closing in mid-September on that project. And so we are very excited about the fact that we were able to get that project within the fiscal year, such that we would anticipate being able to move forth quickly and beginning construction on those two projects. And the last thing I just want to mention was an ongoing relationship that we have had with the Central Intelligence Agency. You may recall, and I think Mr. Raymond Fondell was so instrumental in making or facilitating some introductions with staff or material parties with the CIA some years ago. And they have, they wanted to make a statement to that effect. And in light of their agency, the statement was prescribed, and So I thought I needed to read it specifically as opposed to elaborate on it. And it reads, Southern University System and CIA are building a strong partnership. It is a model for how we want to engage with government and private industry. CIA in September 2019 selected Southern University at its first school under the White House Initiative for Historically Black Colleges and Universities for CIA recruitment and workforce engagement. CIA has been on our campus numerous times during the past 2 years to engage with our faculty and students, conduct workshops, discuss how our students could apply for opportunities to support the national security mission. We expect more campus visits by CIA officials. Many Southern University students have been recruited and hired by CIA in recent years. We expect more of our students to pursue careers in national security because of the role that CIA is playing on our campus. Southern University recently won a contract from CIA for unclassified research that involves our engineering and agricultural programs. This is the first contract from CIA. We are excited about growing our partnership with CIA. CIA is trying to increase the talent pool with diverse and highly skilled officers through dedicated and sustainable outreach. I know with this partnership, we could help CIA with the talent it needs. I want to thank the board for being forward-leaning and for the continued support for CIA engagement on our campus. And as many of you may be aware, we have a number of colleagues and alums who work with CIA. I don't believe I could call names, but I could tell you they have really been instrumental in firming a very substantive relationship with Southern University. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, that concludes my comments, and I am available for any questions that you may have.
Colleagues, any questions or comments regarding Dr. Belton's report?
I'd like to make a statement. This Raymond?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I do want to speak on the letter that the Central Intelligence Agency sent us several years back when we approached them about this opportunity. It presented an opportunity for us to place people of color within our national security services. And that was at the heart of what our relationship was. Pleased to see that this relationship has grown from a White House initiative back in 2019 to where it is today. So we're thankful, and I want to publicly thank the Central Intelligence Agency and all those that are involved with this endeavor for providing our university, one of the first, with an opportunity to be a leader in this area of national security within our country, as far as growing relationships. And I hope that we can continue that moving forward. So thank you very much for that, Dr. Belton report.
Sir. Any other comments or questions for Dr. Belton regarding his report? Hearing none, with Dr. Belton, the report contains some very important information. Chief among them is the relief that we're going to get in our housing space with the addition of those of the new dormitories, and equally exciting is the opportunity to construct. We don't call them student unions anymore, but I think they're what, student activity centers?
Yes.
Is that what they are?
Yes.
It was a union when I was at school.
Yeah, right.
The new student activity center, and you and I have had a lot of discussion and conversation about this, but in particular to Kevin Taylor Jarrell, who's our student leader on this campus and a member of our board. And I know you're committed to this, Dr. Belton, but I hope that there is sufficient and significant stakeholder engagement on the front end, particularly among our students, such that that facility is constructed with them chiefly in mind. I would also like to encourage you and Mr. McClinton and others, Mr. Pitts, to potentially pursue consideration of alternative delivery methods for the construction of that facility. Instead of design, bid, build, maybe a CMAR, which will, I think, provides a lot of opportunities for early on collaboration between the architect and between the design team and the contractor. And I think it provides for a more efficient means by which to implement the project as well. So I look forward to getting some updates in the days and months ahead about where we are with those two projects. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
We go now to item D, our chancellor's report. We will start with Dr. McMeans because he's been very quiet in this meeting. Then we will go to Chancellor Pierre, Dr. Ammons, and then to Sussler. So we'll begin with Dr. McMeans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to board members and President Belton. I would also like to echo what President Belton stated earlier. The Ag Center was one of those areas that benefited tremendously from the last session. So we have already articulated and conveyed our thanks to those individuals, and we'll continue to do so because we do want a repeat of what occurred last session. So we have moved on that. I have 3 items, very exciting. One of which is the USDA 1890 Scholars Program, which has been a staple since 1992 for the 1890. And what's so unique about this program is USDA selects these individuals that they will fund through 4 years of college, and many times fund them through their masters and PhDs with the intent of them coming back to work for these USDA agencies. On average, you would expect 2 to 3 scholars to be awarded to one of the 1890 institutions. Southern this year broke our own record. We will have 8 students coming here with a free ride as scholars, and they're still processing 2 more. So we're excited about this, and they will be sending a formal letter congratulating President Belton on the success. And I want to thank Miss Allison Johnson, who was our liaison and is still acting in that capacity till they fill it, and also recognize Dean Crosby for making sure that those students transition in an easy manner. So we are very appreciative of that, and we look forward to that recognition coming. Also, as it relates to USDA, the Ag Center received a USDA Foreign Ag Services grant, and the title of it, Pilot Assessment, Cataloging, and Assessing the Current Status of U.S. Export Trade to the East Africa region by Identifying Opportunities and Challenges. And so this is one of 10 grants that was funded nationally. Our own Dr. Calvin Walker is the PI. And I also want to recognize Mr. Daniel Whitley, who that falls under his agency, and he is the administrator and director of the Foreign Ag Service. And as I stated in the previous meeting, the first African-American to hold that, and he's also an alum of the College of Ag. Also, the individual be working with Dr. Walker will also be Dr. Ijigiri. We have an external company and some other faculty and staff members. So we will be working largely with Uganda, Congo, and Kenya. So we're looking forward to getting re-engaged with Africa as it relates to our international agricultural endeavors. And last but not least, our JAG Stars program was rolled out last year, and this was the new 1890 scholarship program. And we were really excited last year that we had 37 students to come in with a full ride as scholarship, and they were 37 freshmen. I am pleased to state that this year we have 87 individuals on campus, all freshmen, who have received the JAG Star Scholarship. So we are really putting to use that new scholarship. And what I'm also excited about is to be a part of something that, and I say Southern is a part of it, but Chairman David Scott has further committed and introduced legislation to make this scholarship permanent. There's never been a scholarship federally made permanent, and he wants to do it so at the level of $100 million increase. So we will be following that in the next few months, and we are truly excited about this scholarship because my number one priority is that we increase the number of graduates and food and agricultural disciplines and sciences, because we have to feed 10 billion people in less than 25 years, and we're just not graduating enough individuals, and we're definitely not graduating enough people of color. So we hope that Southern will be a pipeline for those individuals. And that concludes my report.
Thank you,
Miss-
Dr. McMeans. Any questions, Dr. Davis?
Yes, Dr. McMeans, I understand, and I've been getting some feedback that I do operate with LSU, just 2 people producing cannabis, medical marijuana, that there may be a third vendor that's trying to get access. So, and based on the fact that we may not be meeting the demand. So at the next meeting, if you could kind of give us an update of how do we stand as a producer in terms of meeting the demand supply situation in the state of Louisiana. But that could be an item for next month, so that we make sure that we're meeting our expectations, but that we're meeting expectations of the citizens of Louisiana, in particular, our legislature.
Okay, I will do so, and that's quite timely because I will be going before a committee to discuss that in the next couple of weeks. So.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Davis. Thank you, Dr. McMeans. Any other questions or comments for Dr. McMeans from board members? All right, hearing none, we'll go now to Chancellor Pierre, who will be followed by Dr. Ammons, Dr. Ellis, and then finally Dr. Sahu. Chancellor Pierre.
All right. Good morning again, honorable members of the board. Just you have my report. I just wanted to add a couple of things and then wanted to share a video with you from Sunday's Today Show, which shows the work of the Ag Center and the Law Center that we are doing at this particular time in collaboration with other organizations. We have 2 law students who have been named White House Scholars in collaboration with other organizations. Okay. Got it? Okay. So Mr. Idris Stagg and Ms. Ebony Cormier are going to be White House Scholars this year. They were originally planning to go to the White House, but now that program is going to be virtual. We have Ms. Braden Darville, who was named as a Hennessy Fellow through the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, and she will receive fellowship funds up to $50,000 for this academic year for her work. With respect to that, fellowship funds up to $50,000 for this academic year for her work. With respect to that, fellowship funds.
Sounds like you're repeating yourself,
up to
Chancellor Pierre.
$50,000 for this academic year.
Where is Marcus?
With respect to that, fellowship funds.
Sounds like you're repeating yourself, Chancellor Pierre.
Up to $50,000 for this academic year.
Where is Marcus?
With respect to that, fellowship
Who does
funds.
sobriety test is the question.
We got it fixed? Okay. Okay, Chancellor Pierre.
Let's show the video.
All right. Maybe that was a sign for you to stop. All right, we can't hear it. It's not, we can't hear it, Mark.
Relief themselves and say the program discriminates. In March, President Biden signed a package of nearly $2 trillion worth of aid to help the economy back to its feet. Tucked into that American Rescue Plan is some $4 billion worth of debt relief for minority farmers, part of a federal effort to remedy discrimination in farming through the years. That funding now is being challenged in court by other farmers who seek similar relief themselves and say the program discriminates against them. Even if the legal matter is settled, many black farmers face another hurdle, the requirement to prove they own their land. NBC's Rahima Ellis explains in our Sunday Spotlight.
In Wiggum, Georgia, Spencer Hunter has history in this ground. Could you ever imagine this land not being in your family?
Hell no, I couldn't. I really couldn't imagine that.
Unimaginable because he says his family has farmed here since the late 1800s. And what's planted here?
These are peanuts.
His grandfather chose to work the land as a sharecropper, unlike his enslaved ancestors who had no choice.
And he worked to get this. Yes.
To earn the money to actually buy the
this.
land
That's exactly right.
that he worked as a sharecropper.
Yes.
It brings tears to your eyes.
Oh yeah, because it means something. It means a lot.
A love of farming shared by many freed slaves and their descendants explains why in 1910 there were 218,000 black farmers, but recent census figures show a dramatic decline to just 16,000. There are many reasons for the decline, including generations of racial discrimination, violence, and land theft in the Jim Crow South. The head of the Department of Agriculture has even acknowledged its own long history of discrimination towards farmers of color.
So I'll go ahead and schedule your heirs property intake.
A history that a group of young law interns is working to change. Lack of documentation, another reason blacks are losing their farms.
Regardless of the documentation, regardless of how hard we have to fight, we must continue to fight for land because this is important. Land is power, land is legacy.
This summer, they're part of a new coalition called LEAP, a partnership with John Deere, the National Black Growers Council, and the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. Is it enough to do this just for the summer?
Oh, definitely not. We're just getting our feet wet in these cases. They're so complex and they're so unique.
These students are doing the detective work, digging through decades of documents to help black farmers nationwide make a legal claim to benefits that might come in Biden's American Rescue Plan. Do you have the deed to your land?
Not me personally.
Farmers like Spencer will have to show legal documents of ownership. Describe for me the challenge.
Grandma will keep the deed under her mattress for 50 years, but she'll never go file it due to the racial history that's in some of these rural counties where it was unsafe to go file it because you may never see that deed again.
And without this kind of help, are we at a point where we will see the extinction of black-owned farms?
Yes. We will not only see an extension of black-owned farms, agriculture is going to change, family farms are going to change.
With deep roots in the ground.
I work as hard as I can, do everything I can, just so my grandfather's legacy can stay intact.
A promise to care for the land and preserve it for the future. For Sunday Today, Rahima Ellis, Wiggum, Georgia.
Oh, those three students were Southern University Law Center students.
Wow.
And
well, we should
Introducing Grove's line of plastic-free home cleaning products designed to help solve.
And we will be continuing some of that. They will be continuing some of that work this fall. And the MOU that you all approved with the Appleseed will help us do that. And plus, we already have a joint project with the Ag Center with respect to a grant that the Ag Center got for Black farmers and land heirship issues. So
very good. That's outstanding. Just wish we'd have gotten a little recognition in the piece, but
well, what actually happened was that it was supposed to be for all HBCU law schools, but we got first dibs, so they didn't want to make the other law schools seem slighted. We've been working with the Federation for a number of years, so.
Good. All right, very good. You're done, Chancellor Pierre? Yeah. Okay, thank you. We go now to Dr. Ammons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let's see if you can top that, Dr. Ammons.
I don't have a video. I got some great news. I got some great news. The School of Social Work here at the university continues to excel. As a matter of fact, on Tuesday of next week, we will be opening the Center for Grief and Trauma Therapy. You may recall some meetings ago, I announced a grant from the Wisner Foundation in consultation with the city of New Orleans, where now that center is becoming a reality, and it will provide opportunities for our master's students in social work to practice and build a skill set, but also extend that expertise to families in Orleans Parish who have suffered grief, trauma, and loss. The school has also received a $100,000 grant from the National Institutes of Health, and it is in conjunction with the All of Us Research Initiative, where the school's faculty will be engaged in building a diverse healthcare database, looking at issues like environment, biology, lifestyle, and their impact on health. And this is going to really be important research to have a diverse population in this database that will be used by the National Institutes of Health. Our science faculty just received a $200,000 grant from the Louisiana Department of Health for COVID research. We have about 20 faculty members who are going to be engaged in this research to help better understand COVID here in the state of Louisiana, but to also serve as trusted voices in urging our community, especially to take the vaccine. I also want to congratulate Southern University, Baton Rouge, and Dr. Belton. I want to thank you, and I also want to thank Dr. Sam Washington. Some months ago, we announced that the university was partnering with Boeing, and in that partnership, there was a mentor-protege agreement that was developed, and the university became the first HBCU to have this kind of partnership with Boeing. Well, just the other day, this mentor-protege agreement was selected as the program of the year by NASA. And Dr. Belton, you recall all of the work that we did, the visit down to miss you. Well, it's paying off. And our faculty in the College of Engineering, again, working with Dr. Sam Washington, will be a part of the Artemis program with NASA. And this is the program that will return astronauts to the moon. So I want to congratulate them over in the College of Engineering and Dr. Washington for their hard work. I also want to congratulate President Kevin Taylor Jarrell as the newest member of the Board of Regents Student Success Council. This council was set up by the Board of Regents to provide advice and counsel to them on ways that we can increase the likelihood that students enrolled in the colleges and universities across this state would indeed persist and graduate. And Kevin just accepted his appointment, and I want to thank him for agreeing to do it, but I certainly want to congratulate him on being a part of this very important group here in the state of Louisiana. And then lastly, I want to say a few words about the nursing program here at SUNO. About 3 weeks ago now, we offered the position of founding chair to the top candidate in the search. And as you know, we were working extremely hard to make certain that we could have the chair in place 1 year prior to accepting the first class, which would be in August of 22. Well, on August 17th, our candidate informed me that After accepting the offer, making arrangement for housing, had a moving company all lined up, that she could not accept the offer because COVID illness struck multiple members of her family and now requires her to care for 3 children, one as young as 8 weeks old. We offered remote work, but at the time, she could not make the commitment to her family and to starting this program, which I think all of us understand. And furthermore, it reminds us that COVID is real. And we should do everything that we can to encourage folks who have not taken the vaccine to do so. So after consulting with members of the search committee, which include members from the Southern University Baton Rouge Nursing School, Dr. Brown, Dr. Spurlock, members of the healthcare community here in New Orleans, represented by Ocean Health, LCMC, and others. And after much thought, I decided to re-advertise the position for founding chair. I also want to say too that members of the search committee for the first search have agreed to stay on for the second search. So we have developed a plan, and we have a meeting scheduled with the Louisiana State Board of Nursing this afternoon to discuss the plan. We think that we have a plan that will allow us to proceed and stay on schedule to accept the first class in August of 22. We feel good about the plan, but of course there is the possibility that the Board of Nursing may say that that plan won't work. If that is the case, as I stated, the position has been re-advertised, and we will work extremely hard to have someone in place by January, which means that instead of taking the first class in August of 22, we would take the first class in January of 23. So I wanted to give you that update. And as soon as we have word from the Board of Nursing on the direction that we would take, President Belton, I'll certainly inform you and Mr. Chair, inform you and the board as well. But that concludes my report. That's my update.
Thank you, Dr. Ammons. Colleagues, any questions or comments for Dr. Ammons regarding his report? Hearing none, we move now to Dr. Ellis Suster.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman Wetledge, President Belton, members of the board. The Chancellor's report for Susler is enclosed. However, there are a couple of things I'd like to mention. The first, as many of you may have seen on social media, and I believe some of our sister campuses have done this too, but about a month ago, we made an announcement that we were eliminating the student account balances of for all students impacted by COVID-19 from spring 2020 through spring 2021. And so that announcement has had a major impact in the community with our students. And I believe it's one of the things that is fueling the enrollment growth that we are potentially seeing. But also it's a great thing for our students that may have had financial challenges in the past. Those have been eliminated so they can return to school. This coming week, as I mentioned, we are partnering with the Louisiana Department of Health, David Raines Community Center, and some other healthcare providers in the area to do vaccination and testing for our students, for our employees. We're providing incentives to students and employees to to get vaccinated. And we'll also be having some days where we'll open that up to the community. We also received renewal for 2 federal grants, our Educational Opportunities Center and Talent Search grants. They're about $2 million a piece over, I believe, about a 5-year period. So we will continue to be able to provide those services. And then I think the final thing that I'd like to note is we also received approval from the Board of Regents for our National AKA Endowment and Brookshire's Grocery Store Endowment, literally turning $30,000 investments by each of those into a $100,000 endowment for first generation students. And I'd like to note that it's significant because prior to 2017, SUSLA had 7 endowments established. Since 2017, we've added an additional 6, nearly doubling the number of endowments that we have at the SUSLA campus. And one of the things that I believe in and my team believes in is leading by example. And as many of you all know, one of the things that kicked this off was the focus on endowments was my personal gift of $30,000 to the System Foundation to establish a endowment in my mom's name a few months after her death. And so that also that $30,000 commitment has also been turned into $100,000. And we will continue to grow these because we believe they're important for our students. And so lastly, I would just like to share my screen again, just for a quick, I know you may be tired of the videos, but this is one of the videos that is running, in the local area to highlight this upcoming semester. And after the video concludes, that will conclude my report.
If you're thinking about college this fall, think about Southern University at Shreveport. 100% pass rate for dental hygiene students. 100% pass rate for LPN students. 100% job placement for all graduates of radiology tech. The only aerospace program in North Louisiana. An HBCU regional hub for coding and creativity in collaboration with Apple. Northwest Louisiana's most affordable tuition and designated an official military-friendly school. If you're thinking about college this fall, think about Southern University at Shreveport. Call now.
Again, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. Any questions, comments from board members regarding Dr. Ellis's presentation? All right, hearing none, finally we go to Dr. Sahu.
Mr. Chairman, Attorney Rutledge, Mr. President, and honorable members of the Board of Supervisors. It's wonderful, Chairman Rutledge mentioned about when we, during his remarks, our commitment to our students. President Belton emphasized that, and many of the chancellors talked about it in the report. I want to tell that, it's etched in our mission that we provide a student-centered learning environment. And I just want to add briefly to the presentation of my Chancellor, President Chancellor, that the uptick in enrollment that you are seeing, in addition to some demographic shifts, is also possible because what you have done and the President has authorized in terms of enhancing faculty talent, faculty development, through faculty development, that most of our faculty now are trained to provide instruction irrespective of the mode of instruction. So we have faculty who can teach through the traditional mode, they can teach through the hybrid mode, and they teach also online. And we make efficient use of our learning management system. And I think that has enhanced our capacity. And along with the improvement in infrastructure, classroom infrastructure, almost all our, few are still ongoing, all our campus classrooms are equipped with classroom technology, and that will allow the faculty to move, to teach, and the students to receive instruction, if necessary, at their place of choosing. So I want to recognize that this enhancement in capacity, both in terms of training the faculty to embrace technology and embrace multiple modes of instruction has made us a better university. And also the same thing, we still have some areas that we have to continue to improve in terms of our physical infrastructure. But in terms of our technology footprint, I think we can be really proud of. We always hear about, not always, and it is right that we focus on our SAC-COC accreditation and institutional accreditation, but our program specialized accreditations are also equally important, and they keep us, it's an assurance of quality. And I want to report that the Commission on Peer Review and Accreditation, the COPRA, found the Master of Public Administration program in the Nelson Mandela College to be in substantial conformity with the NASPA standards. Thus, now the program is accredited through August 31st, 2027, and will be included in the annual roster of accredited programs. I want to convey my appreciation and compliment Dean Ejigiri in the Nelson Mandela School and the department and the faculty for this accomplishment. In the College of Agriculture and Family Consumer Sciences, I want to highlight that we have a Grow JAGS program where the next generation of agriculture professionals will benefit through recruitment and retention, and the grant was awarded to the tune of $150,000. Likewise, the Fab Lab, the Southern University Fashion and Business Incubator, was awarded $249,795 to increase underrepresented populations in apparel, merchandising, and textile industrial entrepreneurship. A new interdisciplinary now to the College of Nursing and Allied Health. I want to highlight some accomplishments in terms of grants and MOUs. A new interdisciplinary collaborative research partnership was established with the Louisiana Public Health Institute. 4 PhD students completed summer research practicum internships through these LPHI preceptors. In the College of Business, the faculty and the dean, they're taking the lead with the IBM SUS MOU amendment, which is being negotiated and will allow us to add e-learning courses in artificial intelligence, in cloud computing, cybersecurity, and data science. The courses will now be available not just to students, but faculty and staff also. Some achievements in the area of scholarship for our students. The Terry Bacon Scholarship offers 3,000 scholarships to provide financial support to SUBR students aspiring towards careers in business. There are 10 such recipients for the 21-22 scholarships. The CDW SUBR Fellowship Program is also about to launch. The CDW meeting announced the creation of the CDW SUBR Fellowship Program. SUBR is only one of the 4 HBCUs selected for the program. The program will provide award, full tuition and housing to 4 rising juniors, along with 1-week summer internships. All these add up for us to attract the best talent in terms of our students, better prepared college students, and also be recognized as a premier institution of higher learning. I want to especially highlight a program that the College of Business undertook during the summer. The EDA University Center for Economic and Entrepreneurial Development through the College of Business hosted 8 sessions, hybrid business and entrepreneurship advancement program that began on June 8, 2021 and continued until August 7, 2021. This was thus not a one-day program. It continued for a longer period of time. The program was geared towards individuals who desire to start a business. The sessions were led by experienced and credentialed practitioners and university faculty. There were 88 participants spread across the nation who completed the program, of which 45 have opted to sit in for the certification exam, and 15 of the 88 participated in the business plan pitch competition. This makes us relevant. This makes us recognized nationally. And this is something that we should be doing in a larger scale, that we will get better recognition, and through our effort, we will also demonstrate that we care for our community and that we will be able to provide this outreach not only to our students and faculty, but to our stakeholders in the broader community. The rest of the Chancellor's report is in your file, but I wanted to highlight this and thank you for the opportunity to be able to brief you on the progress we are making at the SUBR campus.
Thank you, Dr. Sahu. Colleagues, any questions, comments regarding Dr. Sahu's report? All right, thank you, Dr. Sahu, and to all of our chancellors and Dr. Belton. We go now to item 9. Is there any other business? Any other business? Hearing none, Mr. Lawson, do you move adjournment?
Christy Reeves will.
All right, that'll work as well. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Be safe. Thank you. Thank you. Our meeting stands adjourned.